How many times have you guys heard of a new side hustle out there? A side hustle that gets really hot and viral. Maybe you'll see a few YouTubers talking about it. Well, what if I told you there's an age-old side hustle that's the best one yet? Let's get into it. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome to It's a Wealthy Life. My name is Dan, and on the channel, we talk about the financial markets and your career and family in general. And in this video, I want to talk to you about the ultimate side hustle, in my opinion. Okay, and I'm going to get into the details of this side hustle and why I think it's the best one out there that you can invest in and spend your time on. So I've got a PowerPoint here that I'm going to go through. So this video will have a bit of PowerPoint. I'll try to put my face into some of the slides on the PowerPoint, but for the most part, you might see some details with this side hustle that you might be interested in. So I'm going to get started here. So what are the best side hustles in my definition? There are four different criteria that you should look for in a side hustle. The first is small effort and large return. You want to have the smallest amount of effort to get the largest return, because in that case, you could go out and get another side hustle, if you can have a small amount of effort to get into it. So that's item number one. Item number two is it repeatable? Can the side hustle be repeated year after year, and can you generate income with that side hustle? Or is it something that's just hot for a little short-term period and it just fizzles out, right? We don't want to have one of those. We want to have something that's repeatable year after year. All right. The third item is, can it grow year over year? As you're working on your side hustle, maybe this year you grow it to maybe $1,000 of revenue. Next year, can it be $5,000? The year after that, can it be $10,000? So on and so forth. I think that's important to remember with side hustles. And then the last item, is it scalable? Can you add more fuel to the fire and grow your side hustle to where it's scalable? Maybe if you add a little more capital to that side hustle, can it grow? Can it scale up and go out to the masses? I think that's important as well. So what is the ultimate age-old side hustle, you might be wondering? Well, for me, it's called the D-Money Investment Fund. It's called investing, guys. It is the ultimate side hustle. And I'm going to go through with you how that side hustle is benefiting me today after all the years of investing in that side hustle. And how I'm going to approach this is we're going to look at instruments that only return a dividend or some sort of income stream. We won't look at stocks that actually are only growth stocks that don't have a dividend. I'm going to show you all my dividend returning investments over the last 15 years and what it looks like. So this investment fund was started in 2002. That's when I started my investing journey. I was, I think, around 21, 22 years old. I was born in 1980, so I was 22. Now, the first side hustle vehicle I'm going to talk about is my traditional IRA. Now, back in 2012 is when I rolled over a couple of 401ks into an IRA where I manage this account myself. Okay, so I'll go over the positions that return a dividend, which I consider a side hustle. I don't know why most people don't consider this a side hustle, but it is. You should think of it that way because it's going to earn you cash year over year. Okay, we'll talk about this. So I've got a little table here. I've got my symbol, description, dividend, my cost basis, how much I've put into this side hustle, the current value of that side hustle, and then the percentage gain over the last 15 years that I've been in this. Well, I guess it's 13 years. So 2012. Now to start, we'll go with a classic stock, Apple Inc. Okay, I've been in this position since 2011, October of 2011. But we'll just start at 2012. Now in 2024, I'm going to review with you all the income I received from all these positions. Okay, so that we're clear on things. Now I had to go through all of these positions one by one and figure out exactly how much I got returned. So for the first one, Apple, I received $335 in dividends. The basis, how much I've put into this stock over the years, I've put in a few times in Apple. Every time I saw a decent dip, I would add a few more shares. So my basis is $7,000. And today the value is $71,000. So an 800% gain. They've got a very small dividend. It's a real small yield. I think it's like 0.5%. But most of the gains in Apple are in value because they buy back shares year after year. So small dividend there. The second symbol is FSHCX. Now the FS stands for Fidelity Select. These are mutual funds. I've got a number of them in this chart. This one's the Healthcare Services mutual fund. The dividend for this is $3,085. And my basis for this position was $5,000. I put in 2012. And the value today is $20,000 with a 300% gain. So not too bad. I really like the dividend on this. It's almost returning my exact amount that I put into this. It's almost returning year over year 100%, real close. So I'm really happy about that. Now, as far as the percent gain, it's below performance as far as comparing itself to the SPY, and I'll get into that in a minute. But it's okay, it's not too bad. It's good money every year, $3,000. The next one is Fidelity Select Materials Portfolio. This one only returned $270 for $1,000 basis. So it's returning like 30% of what I initially put in. It's okay. The value today is about $2,500 over 13 years. Again, this was in 2012. And I've made 150%. That's an okay return. To be honest, I've thought about selling this position here and there, but I just keep it. It's a small position. I don't really care too much about it. I don't like to move around in the stock market a lot. I don't like to change positions, so I'm just sticking with it. You never know, like materials could go up in value someday, and maybe this position could go up in value. But it does return a decent dividend. The next one, Fidelity Select Retailing. And this one's a really nice dividend player. It returned for me $4,959, almost my original basis. So I put $5,000 into this position. It's worth $42,000, a 600% return. Now this is outperforming the SPY by a little bit. Well, actually a decent amount. We'll look into that. And man, that dividend, it's almost up to the full basis. So I'm excited about that. When this dividend gets up to $6,000, $7,000, I'll be super happy. And every single one of these positions, guys, I reinvest the dividend back into the original position. So every single time that I get a dividend, it goes right back into the position. So we get that compounding effect. So we can grow that side hustle. Okay. The next one is Fidelity Select Software and IT Services. Let me go back actually 1 second. I almost forgot. This retailing position, it's heavily weighted with Amazon. So that's why you get this intense growth on this position. It's got various other positions, which I don't remember all the positions, but Amazon is its biggest holding, about 28%. So that's important. Now, Amazon I don't believe it has a dividend today. So the other positions probably have a dividend, as well as maybe this mutual fund they buy and sell as they go through the year. So that's how they return such a nice dividend. Now the fifth position, this is my favorite one, the Fidelity Software and IT Services. This one is close to returning its full basis. It's a little bit higher of a basis, $6,000. That's because I added to it 1 year or something like that. I think I recently added to it again. And this one's got an 830% gain, and the current position size is 47,000. So for this mutual fund at 47,000, it's returning 5,000 in dividends. So this one's close to getting up there to its basis. And the biggest position that this mutual fund has is Microsoft. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's weighted for like 28, 30% Microsoft. I can't remember. It varies. These mutual funds, they're constantly adjusting the position. And that one I'm really happy about. I'm going to stick with it. Again, I just reinvest this position year after year, $5,000 every year, and it's going to grow. Next year it could be $6,000. Who knows? But I anticipate, in 15 years, this is going to look real nice when I'm 65. The sixth position is Pfizer. This one is not as good of a performer for me. I carried over shares when I worked for Pfizer. We got like a kind of I think it was like a match or something like that at one point. The percent gain is only about 99%, but it does give a pretty decent dividend, almost $1,500 here, $1,465, and it's for a 20% or $20,000 value currently, so it's giving off a decent yield. The basis is pretty high, $10,000. So in general, am I happy about it? Unfortunately, the stock was at $60 a share at the height of when they came out with the COVID vaccine, and I should have sold it then. Now it's down to like $24 a share, but it does give a decent dividend, so I think I'm going to hold it, to be honest. You never know. They could come out with a new drug and that stock could go back up to $40, $50 a share. So I'll hold it for now, but this one I'm not reinvesting in. I'm actually taking the cash and I'm reinvesting it in other positions in the portfolio in this traditional IRA. So, it's a good cash cow, I figure. And then this one, Viatris Inc. This was a spinoff of Pfizer. It gave me like $46 in a dividend. My basis is $585, and the current value is at $840. So I'm up 45%. So spinoffs, you'll get new stock issued to you in the new company. And I don't even remember what this company does, but it's such a small position that, to be honest, I don't even really care. I could sell it, I suppose, but it does give off a dividend. I'll just keep it for now. Like I said, I don't really like to move a lot of positions. I'm just kind of long all the way. So those are all my dividend returning investments in my traditional IRA. And then I'll go over the total dividend for 2024 for the D-Money portfolio was $14,550. The basis for all those positions is $36,000, and the current value is $205,000. That includes all those dividends that have been reinvested, and then there's also gains within those symbols. And the total gain is 471% from about 2012 is when I invested in all these positions. And then comparing that to the S&P 500, I'm not doing too bad. I'm only down 20 percentage points. If I would have invested the same amount for a 495% gain, I would have been, about $10,000 more if I would have just invested all in the SPY. So, pretty decent performance. I'm only underperforming a little bit. I think most of that is probably the Pfizer position. That's 10 grand worth. It just hasn't been performing that well. So who knows if that performance goes up in value, that could be pretty decent. Now, another thing to note, I'll go back a slide. This healthcare services that gives off a pretty good dividend, I think that's heavily weighted in United Healthcare. So that's going down a pretty penny. So that could be underperforming the market as well. They've had some issues with their, I don't know how they do Medicare or something like that. So, it is what it is. But I'd say that's pretty good. Now, this doesn't include my positions that are growth stocks. So I'm completely outperforming the SPY if I were to include the growth stocks, which I'm going to do a follow-up video on my total portfolio, which will include everything. But these are just dividends, which I like to kind of provide insight into what 15 years worth of holding positions and barely adding to those positions, what you can get in returns on a dividend portfolio. And then I've got a couple other accounts I'll show you guys. So the next one is a 401k that I'm still invested in. I've been with my company since 2016. And I only have one position that returns a dividend, and that is the Fidelity Select. You guys know I like my Fidelity. and it's the real estate index. I think this has like mostly commercial real estate. And the basis for that is about 32 grand. And I don't know. Actually, I think that's the current value. I could be mistaken. Yeah, that's the value. That's not the basis, right? Yeah, I don't know how much I've put in because the provider doesn't give me good information as to how much I've put in because it's like a 401k. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the provider. I won't say the name, but the dividend was $866, which isn't too bad. So the total on that is just $866, which, I'm pretty happy with. And then I've got an after-tax brokerage. This one, I started in 2019. This one, I really just only have what I do in cash. So I hold some cash in the brokerage account. So it's kind of like a high yield savings account. In 2024, I had approximately 40,000 and 30,000 between there. It varied as I did trades in that account. And that dividend was based on government bonds. That's how they give you a return on your cash, is they invest in government bonds. And that one wasn't too bad, $1,100. And but now this year in 2025, I won't have as much because I've invested most of that money into some stocks. So and I'll go over that in my full portfolio video that I'll do. And then I also had a cash back. I had a Fidelity credit card, which I use for everything I purchase, and I got back around $1,900, close to $1,900. So that's pretty good, little return for using a credit card. Now, I don't recommend that for most people, but if you're disciplined enough and you pay them off at the end of each month, you can get a nice return on that. And so the total for that account was $3,029. Not bad, for just cash and a credit card. And then my fourth account is a high yield savings account. I've had this one for a number of years. And, this one I hold around $20,000 in, and the dividend was $533. I think the rates in 2024 probably averaged somewhere near 4%, 3.8%. So a little bit of a yield there. I could move that money into the markets, but I like to have some liquidity for my life. It's just some safety net I like to have. So in total, the grand total was $18,978, almost $19,000. So, let's talk about this, guys. $19,000 for capital, all these little soldiers that are out there doing their job, making me money. That's a nice side hustle. The amount of money I put in today, I think 5 or 6% in my 401k. I don't even put this amount in my 401k. It's less than that. I think I do between 12 and 13,000 in my 401k. I'm putting more from reinvesting into these accounts, from just having capital sit on the sidelines as a side hustle. And not to mention, almost $15,000 of this is all pre-tax. So I don't even get taxed on this money. These other accounts, the high yield savings, I get taxed on. What else here? The Fidelity, I get taxed on that as well. This brokerage account, $3,000, I'm getting taxed on all that, all these gains. Uncle Sam is always going to get their cut, but 15 grand of that is all pre-tax, all non-taxable. So that just goes in and it compounds year over year. So at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, what are the best side hustles? If you start investing some money early on in your 20s and even in your 30s, in 15 years, $35,000 will look like 19 grand, give or take. Past performance doesn't indicate future performance. I was trying to think about what that is. So your performance could vary, but you're probably going to be in the ballpark. This is not investment advice. I'm not a financial professional. I can't tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. But this has just been my experience over the years. And so, a small effort, all I do for these positions is I log in once a year. I look at the positions, maybe I'll make a move or two, and that's about it. I just sleep and I make $19,000 a year. This is the best side hustle you can imagine. I don't know why more people don't do it. It's repeatable. Every year I see these results, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. It just depends on the performance of the market. But in general, I'm going to be around that $17,000 to $20,000 return. Grow year over year. As you compound that return to $18,000 every year, you're going to grow. You're going to get a higher concentrated position and you'll get a bigger dividend at the end of the day. Scalable. Is it scalable? For sure. The investing is scalable, guys. You grow it year over year and it just compounds and gets bigger and bigger. So I'll tell you what, guys, this is the best side hustle. It's the least amount of work that you'll have to put into a side hustle. Everything else just takes effort and time and your sweat equity. This doesn't. So I recommend you start early investing. Even now I'm still investing into these positions. So, I don't know. I think this is the best vehicle for a side hustle. And not enough people talk about it. They talk about investing in your 20s, but they don't think of it as a side hustle. And I do. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is this the best side hustle you can imagine? I think it is. But you guys let me know. I'm sure there's some other great side hustles out there. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And let me know what your guys' side hustles are. So anyways, if you guys could like and subscribe if you do like the content. And take a look at my previous video if you could. And everyone, have a great day. Thanks.